Rungore is a game that has lots of tricks up its sleeve and lots of surprises too, not least of which is its murderous psychotic narrator / tutorial buddy called Clippy, who comes along for the ride chanting that he wants you to grind all of your enemies' bones to dust and paint the corridors with blood. Are we really on the right side? Are we the bad guys? I'm not entirely sure, but I love the murderous, ridiculous, psychotic vibe that Clippy brings to this game, and it paints the picture of subvert your expectations, because Rungore is going to go out of its way to slap them round the face with a wet fish, and it does so by changing up the gameplay for every different character that you unlock. This is a game that is part idle battler, part real-time strategy, part deck builder. And the three kind of elements merge together to create this oddly engaging gameplay loop where you pick a character, they each have their own individual card deck and sometimes share some weapons and resources that you can pick out from. And from there you choose your location to run through various different corridors with a set amount of encounters along the way. Some of them will be dialogue driven, but the vast majority of them will be idle battles against enemies. But each enemy has a unique way to kill it, and it will do various different things to you. Now, you can let the battles just go on, and sometimes it's wise to do so, but inevitably you'll need to start playing some of your cards that you've collected from your deck to start helping out your hero as they run through the gauntlet. Some of these cards will be attacks, some will be defense, some will trigger weird and wonderful thing like evil satanic sheep joining the brigade. And like if you get psychotic, weird narrator, evil sheep coming down, getting skeletons to pop out of the closet, mirrors that will just throw your attacks back at you, deadly flowers that when you intervene with a battle will then just throw all of your attacks back at you, so you have to watch the idle battle unfold. You have to constantly pay attention as to what it is that you've got in front of you and then adapt your entire way of working with this game to then make sure that you can survive. Because in between each encounter, you then get to pick more cards for your deck. Some of them get more powerful the more that you use them, but ultimately this is all building up to the end of the corridor boss, which usually requires you to go into almost quick time twitch reactions to just deal out cards in a very specific order so that you can maximise A, your defences, B, your attacks, but then C, the weakness of whatever it is that that end boss has so that you can manipulate it and hopefully survive. Whilst Rungore is an idle battler, you are very much hands-on and engaged in interacting with all of your different strategies, and that's because each hero has its own unique card set and deck to build from. Now, each of those tie into the different playstyles of the heroes. So Archer deals with like much more ranged attacks. There's one called a Hungry Guy that's like speed of attack is tied to its HP, so you have to keep just feeding him health things so that he can keep going at speed to kill everyone. Then you've got like the basic warrior at the beginning that can mark enemies, so then once they're marked he can then attack them and ensure that additional damage is given for all of that. And whilst you're dealing with all of those different cards that are specific to each hero, you'll also have like helmet, armour, different attack weapons, and they'll give specific traits to your hero as well. The problem with this for me personally, although I can see it being a positive for many other people, is that at the end of every corridor you lose all of the cards that you had before and no progress really carries over. So a run in Rungore feels oddly stilted and disconnected as you move from area to area, corridor to corridor, and almost battle to battle, because sometimes you're having to quick fire spill out all of your cards. It forces you to be active because you can't carry anything with you, but then there's no sign of any like roguelike progression. Not that the game is a roguelike, it's one of those ones where there's some kind of meta overworld progression, like a roguelite, where the more battles that you complete and the more kind of overarching goals that you get, such as dying 25 times or killing a certain type of enemy like 50 times or something like that, you'll eventually unlock additional coins that you can then take into the shop to then buy a different range of armour or weapons or helmets, or expanding out the amount of cards that you can choose from in between encounters to build out into your deck. And that seems to be Rungore's progress. But to me, that then felt very disconnected, because a run never feels like you've truly achieved something. You could go across multiple different areas with the same character over again and kind of go, oh, well, where's the incentive for me largely to be able to chain all of that up together? It felt too bitty, and that was a shame, because the actual moment-to-moment gameplay of Rungore is very addictive, very fast-paced, almost Twitch-like when it comes to the bosses, but I didn't feel any overworld progression particularly, apart from unlocking some of the new characters that's in Rungore in its early access. Currently in the game itself, there are about 7 heroes. I've not seen them all, because several hours in I'm still finding out the weird ways to break this game. And by break it, I mean doing things that the game explicitly doesn't want you to do, and then it crashes the game on purpose. And I feel like that's a bit naughty and weird. And then sometimes I was like, has this crashed on purpose, or is this an actual game crash? It's a very weird trait, but this is Rungore's personality, so you have to kind of lean into it. As you kind of go through all of that, you've then got 12 different levels, which are different areas that you can kind of run to, and each area or level has its own unique theme. So the sewers is full of radiation, so your HP is constantly being reduced down. And if you choose some wrong dialogue choices, that will speed up. So then you're constantly on the lookout for cards that will give you HP replenishment, because it's constantly going down. In another area, such as the church, you can only use one of your heroes per floor, so you're constantly being asked to swap out things, and then the deck swaps out with you, and it forces you to start switching up different play styles very quickly on the fly, which is a good thing. In all of this, there's over 200 cards, and although some decks and heroes share some similar traits, they all have a unique spin on it, and that's the best thing that I can say about Rungore, is that every character feels uniquely built with a specific play style, that if you try and copy paste the same strategies over from one hero to another, it just doesn't simply work, and you'll die very, very quickly. So yeah, that's the real kind of linchpin for me that made Rungore a good game to play. Add in some psychotic humour, and you've got a cult classic waiting to be fully born when it comes out of early access, whenever that may be. What's here though is still a meaty game, and I would say largely the gameplay mechanics are all fleshed out quite nicely. I do think there's some balancing of the economy to be done, so that you aren't grinding so much to try and understand what's the secret hint to get the next character, because I spent a lot of my time kind of wandering around going, I've done this several times, is this the right thing to do? I don't know, but the hint's still kind of sending me in a direction, and events weren't triggering for me, which felt a bit odd, and so progression in this game does feel a bit stilted, but largely I enjoyed my time with Rungore. I will be coming back to this periodically as the game gets updated, so that I can experience all of the new and weird heroes that are being added. And I think if you've got psychotic dark humour and have a penchant for idle games and deck builders, then Rungore feels like a no-brainer recommendation. Written review will be over on highplanegames.com. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.